Hey, good morning. I'm going to read today from a collection that I edited a few years ago with my friend Lynn Stegner. It's called West of 98. We invited writers from all over the West to write about what it means to them to be from the West and how the West has shaped them. This particular essay that I'm going to read part of is by Barry Lopez. It's called A Dark Light in the West. And it's timely because it talks about racism. So I'm going to read a couple pages from this. The most outrageous episodes of violence, the shootings at Rock Springs and Deep Creek, a series of 17 lynchings in Los Angeles in 1871, 13 Chinese murdered over a three-month period in San Francisco in 1885, come to mind only hazily today for many who nevertheless identify themselves with the heritage of the American West. One presumes the majority of such people are at least aware of and perhaps less indifferent to the long catalog of horrors visited upon Native Americans west of the Mississippi, which includes the virgin soil epidemic of smallpox that came up the Missouri River in the summer of 1837, devastating thousands of Mandan, Arikara, Grovant, Pawnee, Hidatsu, Assiniboine, Blackfeet, and Yankton and Santee Sioux, the burning of the Comanche, Kiowa, and Cheyenne winter villages at Palo Duro Canyon, Texas in 1874, and the relentless pursuit of fleeing non-treaty Nez Perce by cavalry troops in 1877. Sensitized to the Chinese history of Oregon following that afternoon in the woods with Richard, I recalled vaguely having read some years before of an incident in the Wallowa Mountains in the northeastern corner of the state. A large group of Chinese men, placer mining for gold somewhere in the Hells Canyon reach of the Snake River, had been robbed and murdered. I first encountered the story, I later determined, in a historical novel by Craig Leslie called River Song. Shortly after that day, I read a more detailed account of the massacre in the Oregonian, the Portland newspaper, by a reporter named Greg Noakes. 31, perhaps as many as 33 Chinese, he wrote, camped near the confluence of the Snake River with the Oregon's Deep Creek. 65 miles upstream from Lewistown, Idaho, were shot to death by a local gang of small-time stock thieves and schoolboys, the youngest of whom was 15. Noakes references one chronicler who suspects the group robbed the men of about $5,000 in gold dust and nuggets, a fortune at the time. In 2009, Noakes published a book about the murders, Massacred for Gold, the Chinese in Hells Canyon. In the book, Noakes is as much concerned with how his efforts to investigate the crime were thwarted by county officials as he is with what happened to the Chinese. He exposes, for example, the determination of some local residents to preserve, down to the present, a distorted vision of their pioneer history, dismissing both the heinous nature of the crime and their ancestors' anemic efforts to arrest and charge the perpetrators. Okay, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit here. Reflecting on all this, I find one of the lessons that has grown out of many late 20th century revisionist histories of the West, revisions that have taken into account the lives of Native peoples and haven't overlooked the experience of Braqueros and Wobblies and Chinese laborers, is a lesson about a need for tolerance. And where tolerance has been forged, a further lesson can emerge about a need for reconciliation. To my thinking, what finally proves important in our attempting to reconcile with the past is not necessarily the making of amends, but our offering silenced parties the opportunity to tell their own stories without interruption, according to their own sense of timing and without fear of refutation. For those in power, simply to let what others say stand as their truth and to go on from there is a critical part of the healing that might conceivably take place after racial and ethnic violence. Amen. Barry Lopez. Hey, have a great day.